Hello everyone, February the 4th. Well, this is so intriguing what I just found a few hours ago actually. The synchronicity of the Philadelphia experiments chart, which you see here on the side, which we will get deeper into, with what is this year's main signature, the winter solstice chart, and the three other charts which I referred to in my 21st of January recording on Earth Changes, where I go through all the sources and show how they line up with each other, how I was able to triangulate and really pin it down that this is the year we are in right now, where all these big shifts and changes will manifest most likely. Naturally, I mean, I'm still also hoping that it is not necessary on some level to go through all these extreme changes, but I still hold the strong opinion it is unavoidable. Big changes are coming, and many people will leave this planet, and I will show you the signatures of that so you can prepare and be alerted. Aside from all the wonderful things which are happening too, I want to really emphasize that, and I will definitely go deeper into that part too. It seems it's really the extreme events will enable the good things to start happening. It's like that is where the energy is generated, where the momentum is created for something truly wonderful to happen on this planet for everyone who is ready for it, who is on that timeline of a new earth, of something truly amazing to come. So let's get started. First, I want to show you the few charts here, just very quickly, without getting too deep into it. But this is the Philadelphia experiment. This is the time which Albiolek, and we're getting into that, has given us through Paola Harris. And this is the winter solstice chart. You see the exact same geometry, the 19th degree of Capricorn rising. And then just a few days away now, this is the big conjunction of the lunar north node with Neptune, which literally links us into that invisible dimension of multi-timelines and receptivity to something much, much bigger than we can conceive. That is what Neptune stands for, the lunar north node being the evolutionary pointer, what is really coming in, what we attract, what we relate to. And then just a few weeks away, this is really the moment when I see things starting to get really wild, will be the eclipse, the partial solar eclipse, one of the two eclipses of 2025. And this, you see, has the exact same axis, just the other way around. So what has been getting ready here in Capricorn with these three charts here is now getting out into the into manifestation at the descendant here. That is the clear point of extroverting this energy which has been building up. And just to say one more thing, just in a few days, on the 9th of February, we have a Mars occultation, the last one of this series. There were only 3 in a row every month, every time the moon came through this degree, that Mars was being hidden behind the moon for at least part of Earth. And this will be the 3rd one, and you see it's exactly that same degree, also very, very close to where the Sun and Mars were in opposition. So we will get into these charts too, but for now I really want to focus on the Philadelphia experiment, which has been debunked naturally and pretty much all through the internet. You can't find any information which would say yet it has happened, but still there's a few good sources. I'm going to play you this quickly. It's a few minutes. This is quite a good compilation of what happened on that infamous day of October the 28th in 1943. So let's get started with this.
With the concept being that if the ship were surrounded by incredibly intense electromagnetic fields, could it distort our vision of it enough that it became invisible?
As the story goes, on October 28, 1943, government scientists wrapped a fully crewed ship named the USS Eldridge in a cage of electrified copper wire and began the experiment.
I want to throw in, this was a project Tesla and Einstein were involved in. They worked for the military at the time. And it says also Einstein's unified field equations helped to create the background mathematical to enable this invisibility project, to create these extreme electromagnetic fields which would open time and space into multi-dimensional reality, into hyperspace. So let's keep going here for a little while.
But then everything went terribly wrong.
Supposedly, after the switch was thrown, all hell broke loose. The ship was encased in fog. Everyone was running around the decks, screaming in panic mode. No one knew what was happening. At that point, the USS Eldridge vanished in the green mist, only to reappear in the Norfolk, Virginia shipyard, disappear again, then, about 3 hours later, reappear in Philadelphia.
This was witnessed by a merchant mariner called Carl M. Allen, who claims that he saw it vanish in the green mist before returning to the same spot. And then in Virginia, some people witnessed the ship appear there and vanish there as well. So what is going on here?
When the ship was boarded, it was found that the sailors were in horrible condition. Many were dead, and others were found to be embedded in the bulkhead of the ship, still alive.
Some of the crew seem to be almost frozen in time or stuck within parts of the ship and unable to actually get out, which seems to suggest the alleged teleportation involved with the Philadelphia experiment, that it had actually warped space-time itself.
According to reports that surfaced years after the catastrophic experiment, the USS Eldridge was not only transported across hundreds of miles, but it also seems to have somehow traveled decades into the future.
Allegedly, the ship was actually catapulted through time and space, a completely unexpected result, appearing at various locations like Chicago in 1969 and Lake Mead in 1983, only to disappear and to continue across the time stream uncontrolled. The Eldridge just randomly skipped across time, achieving a rough form of time travel.
A rough form of time travel, yes indeed. Now there is another source which is actually even more reliable than Jessup and Allen, which was the first one to truly remember his involvement on the deck, being an engineer there of the Eldridge. Naturally, all these people who have survived were mind wiped. However, there is these two engineers, and these are critical figures. Al Bielek is one of them, and his brother Duncan is the other one. They were in their, I guess, 20s or so. They were young engineers, and they were definitely there, ready to throw the switches and do what was necessary. And as they realized that the experiment had gone haywire, with this big white flash, which really made it unstoppable. They realized that immediately. They realized the danger they were in. They jumped overboard and they ended in the future. And that's where really the source of this information is about Earth changes in 2025. They ended up in the year 2137. Yes, believe it or not, doesn't really matter at this point. Just bear with me and follow the story. It sounds fantastic, but it is. There's lots of factual truth in astrology itself, which we will get to in a few minutes. I want to really just first build the story here a little bit. So they were found with serious radiation burns, the two brothers, after having jumped out of that ship, and they never landed in the water. They were traveling through hyperspace and they didn't know where they were when they found themselves back in on Earth somewhat. They were found and they recovered in that hospital for 6 weeks. Now imagine they come from 1943 and here they are in this hospital with huge color TV screens which are entertaining the patients. They learn about all what's happening at that time in history and the future, and naturally here and there come news on and reports, and they show maps of the world which look very, very different from what they were used to. So they did ask and they were told, well, yes, about 100 years and a little more, in around 2025, big earth changes took place. And now in 2137 there's only about 300 million people living on this earth. Anyway, the story goes that one of the brothers then was even beamed forward more into the year 2749. You can all find that on his website, albielek.com. These are all memories which actually came back decades later. Actually, it's interesting that it was the Hollywood production of Philadelphia Experiment, which was aired first in 1984, which, as he was there in the theater, that triggered his first memories that he was involved in that, and then naturally he kind of magically, it happened that he ran into other people who were there, his crewmates, and everything got kind of slowly uncovered, and over time, around the year 2000, a whole bunch of books were published about the Montauk Project, and they all are having the same memories. These people, Preston Nichols is one of them, Peter Moon. You can look it up, the Montauk Project. That is really where kind of the time loop ended. So it is actually the only source which I found of credibility, which is really giving you the story as good as it can, is Paula Harris, who is a famous UFO investigator. You probably have heard of her. And she has met Al Bielek in 2005 at the conference, and she then got an interview with him where she gives us all the first-hand information. So here is what he has figured out, remembered finally. So after many tests, in the end the Navy decided that they only wanted radar invisibility, so they changed the equipment slightly on October 28, 1943 at 17:15. Now this is important, 17:15, this is military time. If you were doing the North American time, you would say 5:15 p.m. or whatever, then it would be local time. 17:15 is clearly military time, which means it's universal time, and that is what I have been using here in my chart. And anyway, that was when the switches were thrown. The electromagnetic generators were turned on. Eldridge became nearly invisible. Only a faint outline of the hull remained visible in the water. Everything was fine for the first few seconds, and then in a blinding blue flash, the ship completely vanished. Within seconds, it reappeared miles away, actually 200 to 300 miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, and was seen there for several minutes. The Eldridge then disappeared from Norfolk as mysterious as it has arrived, and reappeared back in the Philadelphia Naval Yard a few hours later. This time, most of the sailors were violently sick. Some of the crew was simply missing, never to return. Some went crazy, but strangest of all, 5 men were fused to the metal in the ship's structure. The men that survived were never the same again. Those that lived were discharged as mentally unfit for duty, regardless of their true condition. So what had begun as an experiment in electronic camouflage ended up as an accidental teleportation of an entire ship and crew to a distant location and back again, all in the matter of minutes. Although the above may seem fantastic, one must remember that in the 1940s the atomic bomb was also being invented, just to get the context. So now let's look into the astrological chart of this event, and let me just go back to the geocentric one first to show you the quite dark energies we have in here. So first of all, the moon was exactly at 0 degrees Scorpio here, just approaching a new moon a few hours later. So the scorpionic energy is definitely very strong, which is about that transfiguration and mysterious events in a general way. The Capricorn rising makes sense as it's about Saturn of material density to being shifted and changed. There's a perfect conjunction here, Mars and Saturn, and actually I include a few of the Uranian points, planets. Supposedly, I don't think they're really literally planets, but they're energetic points, probably in another dimension, which truly work. And Vulcanus is one of them, speaking of enormous energy, of a tremendous boost of Mars naturally, together with Saturn. And then there's also Aspulus here, who is always kind of that dark fascination of mysteries. Sherlock Holmes energy, I like to call it AW197. That is the slingshot effect, that whatever energies you're working with, they are coming back at you in a different way than you expected, you could say. Also, the art of war is related to that. Orcus is about transformation too, and alchemy in that sense, which truly is definitely something on that line. Vesta, this is the kind of the asteroid giving us the calling to do something. It's serving a higher purpose. Now, this can be truly beneficial if you have a very spiritual outlook, but it can also be very destructive if it's a fanatic approach. Fanatism is the other end of the spectrum of and that is definitely more likely. Then we have here Saturn no, Sedna and Hades, actually in an exact T-square here with the ascendant. Sedna is that deep and dark energy which comes from the deep, also the mysteries and all the unknown, you could say. And Hades is a very, very difficult force. It is about the underworld and all the dark and difficult and nasty and painful events. Then if you look, there's a perfect configuration here between these planets. Actually, I should also include Admetos. That's another one of the Uranian planets. Very much about the deep and the connected to the transition into another dimension. Death is often connected with Admetos. Still stand, everything coming to a halt, and it's kind of a very difficult energy to handle with too. You see there's a trine here to Zeus, which is another one of those, speaking of electricity actually, and sudden bursts of energy in a sextile to Mars and that whole conglomeration, and then another sextile. So this is a very charged configuration in itself. In the fifth house here, Mars and Saturn and all of that, the fifth house of Leo, which is that manifestation area where we want to show off. Uranus here too. Uranus, if you do the calculation, actually is here at the midpoint of let me see, it's sometimes hard to remember all the fine aspects here, but let me see if I find it. Let me just click on it. I want to show you the aspects. So this is a nice feature. Here we are. So the closest aspect is actually to Ceres, the earth goddess. Then it's in a right here, it's in a 3 septile to the center of the chart. The aim of the energy in general, septiles always are mysterious, unusual, weird, and Uranian energy in this moment, in that aspect, very telling. Let's see what other exact aspects there are. Counterparallel to Eris. Eris and Uranus often are showing extreme events too. A quintile to Zeus again here. Quintiles are creative aspects, so again that electricity, magnetic fields. I mean, these magnetic fields were powered by huge generators on board of the Eldridge, and the whole ship was naturally wired in that sense to create these fields. And trine to Astraea, counterparallel to the ascendant. Semi-sextile to Ceres, parallel Saturn, and then, yeah, I mean, this is just showing you the exact aspects, and then are all the midpoints too we could look at. Vertex here with Jupiter, another one, Jupiter in Leo, kind of that boasting energy. We can achieve anything we want, and we won't care for whoever has to suffer through that. That's kind of a very I would say, yeah, boastful, and what's the word here? Missing the word I'm wanting to use. Arrogant. Arrogance comes in here too, and naturally in the conglomeration of all these energies. Pluto, the North Node. The North Node actually is in perfect T-square with the power axis. So this North Node is particularly charged up as it's at the most yang point of the chart, if you want, as this is the balance, the midpoint, the plumb line, and this is the most to the right. And then Leo intersected what's the word again? You probably understand what that means. Enclosed within the 7th house. So this is not a kind of a pressure cooker energy. The equatorial point on asteroid Australia, who's cleaning up difficult situations, who's dealing with early things which need to be mended. Then if we look at the heliocentric chart for a moment, which gives you the music, the background, the frequencies which are allowing for these manifestations, then this chart in itself speaks a lot too. So here you have again that same configuration, this time also palaces here, which is science, that mathematical approach. And palace, the downside of palace is it's very mental, not much connected to emotions, so we can do anything. We can go over dead bodies here, particularly in this configuration with Hades, Setna and Admetos. Interesting here is the heliocentric conjunction of Venus and Uranus, which is kind of that scientific interest in it's kind of a little bit of Frankenstein's energy of wanting to know what gets out of that, particularly in this square with Chiron, the opposition of Eris with Mercury here together with Neptune. Another one which stands out, Eris, as you know, is the one which wants to know what's possible in a way. It's that urge to explore and be, in that sense, cutting edge, not shying back from conflict, wanting to know it all. That's kind of the energy, and it's hexagram 18, by the way, here, which is work on what has been spoiled. So we see there's a whole bunch of really dark and difficult energies in this chart. Also on the heliocentric dimension. Ceres is here too. Ceres, the earth goddess, here with Saturn, with Vulcanus. Pholus here on the ascendant, I forgot that one. Pholus is also one of those who's ready to take great risks. In the geocentric it's almost very close. Let me go back to that one more time. You see in here it's really the most poignantly placed minor planet, Centaur, Pholus, that wanting to experiment with something yet unknown and going to places one never has been before, kind of. And naturally with Juno here, this is the crew, and you see the perfect square here to those dark energies. You already can see the disaster is looming. There will be terrible consequences. People lose their lives. They are going crazy. They have been sacrificed naturally. Also the aspect here, the 150 degree to Mars and Saturn and all that conglomeration, as well as the 150 aspect here to that whole group, mainly Zeus, Jupiter and the dark moon, the collective shadow point. So anyway, anybody who would want to debunk this story as something fictitious is pretty much defeated by the astrology of the event. And really I'm just showing you what stands out. One could dig deeper into midpoints and such. I wanted to show you this, and then in my next recording I will go deeper into what effect this has on our present times, as I already did in my 21st of January recording. So much for this. Thank you for joining, for listening. Please share if you feel like doing that. Give it a like or subscribe, then you definitely don't miss all my other videos which are to come or which already are in the archive. Again, thank you. See you soon.